Welcome to the Self-Care Creative Podcast, a show where I talk about the struggles, mental health, and work-life balance of creatives. I'm your host, Ray, and I hope you will follow me through a journey of figuring out a better life as a creative through deep dives into self-care topics and interviews with other creatives about their ups and downs. Hey, wow, finally doing this and hoping all of this tech dilemma that I went through for this project actually doesn't fall on my head. Is that how you say that phrase? Hi, welcome to the Self Care Creative Podcast. Who am I? You probably ask yourself because this is the first episode, and the reason you click on the first episode on a podcast is usually because you want to know who someone is and why they made the podcast. My name is Ray. My actual name is Rabea. At least that's how it's pronounced in German. But I tell most English speakers to just call me Rebecca because that's just easier to pronounce and it's my second name, so it just works better. But you can call me Ray. Ray is just working the easiest because it's short, it's easy to remember. Just call me Ray. It works with both of my names. Call me Ray. I'm currently 21, depending on when this podcast is coming out, maybe 22. I'm born in 1999 on February 9. Where am I from? You can probably guess by my accent that I'm German, and my first language is also German. Very, very easy to tell, I believe. I'm from the southwest of Germany, for any German listeners. That's in Rhineland-Palatinate. I think that's how you pronounce the state I'm living in English. I'm fluent in English, can you tell? I'm fluent in English, but sometimes like local names in a different language, just, yeah, whatever. What am I doing and why am I even making this podcast? Okay, what I'm currently doing in life is catching up on certificates, school certificates, because I had to drop out because of mental illness a while ago. And now your girl is doing online school to catch up on some certificates so she can still get a degree in university. And what's more important for this podcast is that I'm writing a blog that's all about self-care and personal development at raywag.com. That's always linked in the show notes, by the way, just so you're aware, and you can check how it's written out, because Raywag, sometimes people just want to not mispronounce, but miswrite that. Just check out the show notes. And just overall, what I'm doing is just trying to find my place in this world. Do any of us really know what we're doing here? I mean, I'm in my early 20s. It's kind of like what you're supposed to do. I'm just trying to find my way. My story. That's the title of this podcast episode. Um, there's a reason why I talk about self-care, personal development, creativity, mental health, and all those topics on here, because I have a story. My life story, pretty much. I grew up pretty much with all the signs that I would have mental illness later in life. More like the anxiety type of mental illness, less the depression kind of mental illness, but I was always pretty nervous as a child, but I was really good at school. So like the typical creative that was gonna have some mental problems later on, because that's just how it works, I guess. I was raised by a single mother. I think that's also having a very specific impact on people. I think everyone raised by a single parent knows what I mean. That just leaves you with different kinds of views on the world and governments and all that stuff. But yeah, I was raised by a single mom. I don't know if she's listening to this, but if she does, hi mom. You probably don't understand half of what I'm saying right now because English has been a while ago for you. But yeah, let's start with where my creative journey starts. And that's in 2012 when I was 13 years old. I think it was actually before I was 13. But in 2012, I started my first blog. It's super old. I don't think it exists anymore, but little me wanted to make an impact on the internet, and I wrote blog posts. I actually wrote blog posts very frequently. They didn't have specific topics, but I was regularly consistent with it. I don't know how I managed to do that at that point in my life, looking back, but younger me had way more energy. The reason why I'm talking about mental health on this podcast, or why I will do that on this podcast, is because I struggled with anxiety disorder for 7 years, and I'm recording this in 2020, and knock on wood, I'm currently not having any problems with my disorder anymore. Um, well, yeah, let's go into that a little bit too, because in 2013 I had my first major panic attack in summer, and I collapsed from stress. That's actually a thing. You can like faint because you're too stressed. That I didn't know that before it happened, but that's a thing. Now the more you know. The collapsing happened before the summer break, and I went to school normally after summer break, and I didn't really struggle a lot with my mental health after that. But looking back, knowing now what I know now, my stress was kind of building towards my health literally falling apart in the winter of that year. And yeah, that's what happened. I mean, yeah. 2014 started with another panic attack and a week in a hospital. That was not a nice experience to have, because that's the first time I was told that my problems were my mental illness problems. And when you get told that for the first time, you don't believe it, because physical symptoms are physical symptoms to you, right? But yeah, that's not the case, because psychosomatic things exist. You can feel physical things from mental problems. Not cool. If you don't have a mental illness and you're listening to this, now you know that's the thing. The first half of 2014, honestly, that could be a book in itself. I don't know if I will ever make a single episode on that, but if anyone is really interested in it, you can check out my. I have a YouTube video on this, I think, but it's in German, and I don't think I have anything translated into English. So that might be a problem. But maybe I will talk about it sooner or later, because there is the story is online somewhere, just not in the language I'm currently speaking in. My anxiety disorder honestly got worse and worse in 2014 for a while, because everyone kind of added to making it worse. Well, like my general doctor, what do you call that? General physician, right? Yeah, English. My headmaster at the school, all of these people added up to making my anxiety actually worse than better. Even like the first psychologist that I ever went to kind of just, yeah, didn't make it better. Towards the summer of 2014, my anxiety got better, but that would change sooner or later, because in 2015 I changed schools. I mean, it changed them in 2014, but that's a whole nother story. But in 2015, I was at another school, and my mental health was generally better until my complete health took another dive. Because I didn't have time to recover. I just got so much better with mental health to just go back to school, and I didn't have any rest. I didn't have enough therapy at that point. And one of my close family members faced not very nice illnesses at that time, and that made me spiral down another health deep dive into rock bottom. Yeah, that was not a great time of my life, but yeah. The more you know. I dropped out of school twice overall. That was the first time, by the way. 20 Between 2015 and 2016, I didn't go to a school. I really just concentrated on getting my mental health back to where it should be. Went to a mental health hospital kind of thing. it wasn't really a hospital. Like I just went there every day and then I went home. Um, but that kind of helped, I guess. I made a lot of friends during that year. And in the beginning of 2016, I felt really, really healthy actually, and I was like, yeah, let's try school again. Well, that's where the problems begin again. um, I dropped out another time after 6 weeks at that school. Not because I was dumb or anything. I'm actually still a pretty good student. I like learning. But there's something in me that is just having being triggered by school, and I'm still trying to figure that out to this day. Um, yeah, so like I dropped out a second time, and that was when I decided to sign up for an online school to get the certificate I wanted, and I did that for the next 3 years. Now let's skip 2017 because that wasn't a very eventful year for me. 2018 is the next year that's very important. That's when I started my current blog, the raywag.com blog. And I plan to do it more professionally, and I launched one product a year since then, like, of course, digital products, because that's the way to go currently. If any of you are creatives in that field, you will know what I'm talking about. And 2019 was just me trying to like juggle all of these things: school, a blog, other stuff that's like in between, mental illness that I was still somehow struggling with, just not as much anymore. And then we have 2020. Uh, yeah, the year nobody wants to talk about. um, I'm currently it's December. I'm pre-recording this podcast, and I'm close to writing my exam soon. And I'm currently I started doing school for the next better exam after that. Oh, and holy yeah, the pandemic. The pandemic. I mean, I'm still trying to find a good therapist, drama therapist, to find out why school is a triggering thing for me. That's what I want to add about the whole school thing and dropping out thing. But yeah, for the pandemic. Do we want to talk a lot about the pandemic? Because I think a lot of people just really mental health overall across the board kind of happened. um yeah, thankfully I've known coping mechanisms by that point. I mean, wow, if I really don't know how some people that have never had mental illness problems before navigated 2020, because wow. I mean, I had been very isolated before then because of my mental health, but that kind of helped me in the beginning of the lockdown and pandemic, but a few months in, wow. If any of you struggle in 2020 or even in 2021, that's totally okay. That makes you actually a more sane person because you feel what's happening in the world. I mean, you have to put up boundaries and be there for yourself, of course, but it's normal to feel like you're just scraping by. That was a feeling that a lot of us felt. But yeah, I'm just self-carrying my way through it. Self-accepting my way through it. And this winter I got the brilliant idea to start a podcast. Every voice is important, and I thought the topics that I want to talk about in this podcast are not very talked about. Like, they're self-care podcasts, they're mental health podcasts, they're personal development podcasts, but they're not with the same kind of vibe. I can't explain what I mean. I just have like a different view that I want to bring to this. Other people just talk about like self-care, boundaries. That's good. Self-care, self-love, very important topics. I will also talk about that on this podcast. But there's a different vibe to it when you are creative, when you're in your early 20s, because everyone around you shows you the highlight reel, especially in times of social media. You just all you see is all the wins other creatives are having. There are not a lot of people, especially when they're really successful, like celebrities or whatever, they don't show you their current struggles. And that's a really big problem. And this is one of the main motivations why I wanted to start this podcast, because we need more realness. We need way more realness in the space for creatives, that struggling is very much part of the journey. Very much so. And for like people in their early 20s and in general, I mean, you don't need to be in your early 20s to struggle, or in your 20s in general. People struggle at every life stage with every kind of job, but especially if you're creative and what you're doing is coming from your heart and from vulnerability, it's so normal that the things we feel are struggle. Like, they include struggle. It's not just all good. And I really just wanted to talk about the problems the current world has with mental illness and creators have with mental illness. All these problems people have are very, like, from coming from a very layered standpoint, if you get what I mean. Like, there, it's not just, oh yeah, I have this predisposed in my genetics and something triggered it. It's also the way our society currently works, the way people in higher positions don't share their struggles, their negatives, and only their positives. There's so much going into that, and I'm part of Generation Zero. I still don't know why, but I am. Um, I feel like like people born between 95 and 2000 will get this. You just kind of feel in between millennials and Generation Zero. But anyway, I grew up one half of my life without the internet, pretty much, or at least without a smartphone, and the other half with one. Like, I had a smartphone since I was like 12 or 13, I think 13, and that does things to our minds. That is also very, very central to why I wanted to talk about things on this podcast, like toxic productivity, imposter syndrome. I mean, imposter syndrome would probably be a thing either way, but that's also because of power structures and whatever. That, I mean, highlight reels have existed before social media. You know, watching celebrity interviews was always a thing. And there was always a highlight reel. I mean, I'm glad we're kind of realizing it in the last few years, but oh, we still have a lot of work to do. What can you expect from this podcast? Let's go a little bit into that. You can expect a lot of talk about self-care, self-growth, mindset, mental health, and you can expect it alone from me or with others. I aim to have people on this podcast that I can talk to. I've never interviewed people. I'm scared as hell to do it, but if I learned one thing from my anxiety disorder, it's feel the fear and do it anyway, right? I will try. I have a lot of people on my dream interview list, and you better believe I'm asking them if they want to come onto my podcast. Some of them are less well-known creatives, some of them are, you know, you might know the name, but like only if you're in specific places. And some people on that list are so far up that I don't know if they will ever be on that in this podcast, but I will try. Because if you never try, you never know. Because if you never ask, no will always be the answer. That's kind of a mantra. Like, you better ask and get a no than never having asked and still getting a no. You know what I mean? Other than that, for what you can expect from me, not just this podcast, I'm just honestly currently working down my creative bucket list. I want to write a book and publish it in 2021 or 2022, sooner or later. I don't know. The pandemic showed us that we can't plan everything. And sooner or later in the future, I might want to write a screenplay or something like that. You can tell I'm kind of multi-passionate creative. I have a lot of things that I like doing creatively, and they're gonna be talked about on here probably. And honestly, if the movie industry wasn't the way it is with its power structures and gatekeeping, I would probably also be acting. But, you know, who knows what changes in the future. Now, you know my story, you know my motivations for this podcast and what will happen on this podcast a little bit. But what are my inspirations for the podcast? Well, that's a list I would. You know that SpongeBob scene where he has this endless scroll that just keeps rolling everywhere. Yeah, that's my entire list of inspirations. I'm a sponge. I get inspiration from everywhere. But currently, I really like Mel Robbins. She's the author of the 5 second rule, and not the 5 second rule with food. I mean the 5 second rule with getting yourself to do stuff. That really helped a lot of people with ADD and ADHD. I also like Jenna Kutcher. She has one of the biggest business podcasts on any podcast platform, so you might know her if you listen to podcasts. I'm also very on into Brie Larson, what Brie Larson is doing currently. She's an actress. I don't know if you don't know her, you don't watch Marvel movies. I'm pretty sure. Um, but she started a YouTube channel recently, and I've been enjoying that. Pedro Pascal, that's an actor that plays in the Star Wars universe and of course other franchises, but you know that's where I know him from first. And John Boyega, also a Star Wars actor. If you can't tell, I'm kind of a nerd. I like Star Wars, I like Marvel, I like a little bit of DC. So if you're a nerd, here we go. We already have a connection here. Actually, I'm kind of in the Star Wars fandom on Twitter because I'm 21. It's kind of normal to be on Stan Twitter at my age. Don't ask. It's just it happened. Okay. um, but yeah, the people on there kind of were the ones that motivated me to do this podcast, even though I'm very scared to do it. And I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm doing it anyway. But yeah, those people, a lot of those people on Star Wars Twitter were very supportive of me starting this and kicking my ass to actually do it when I questioned myself for doing it. And here we are. I mean, it's happening. If any of you are listening, yes, I'm talking about you. You're great. You're very loved. Thank you for kicking my ass. I hope this is not. Is it explicit content if I use the word ass on a podcast? We will find out. If this is. Do I need to mark this as explicit now? I don't know. My number one dream interviewee currently is Pedro Pascal. I don't know if I'm saying this right. I just know that I'm not saying it like the Americans keep saying it. It's a Spanish name. I never know if I should make the E longer or shorter. But I'm not saying Pedro because God, no. Please keep pronouncing names in the way they're supposed to. Whatever. If you don't know who he is, he plays the Mandalorian in The Mandalorian. He's the dude with the helmet on that carries around Baby Yoda. For anyone that doesn't watch The Mandalorian, this is the only way I can explain this. He also plays a villain in the DC universe in the latest Wonder Woman movie. But I'm not here to just gush about Pedro Pascal in the first episode. But that would definitely be my dream interview to have because yes. I'm having like I'm 21. Come on, like I'm not gonna hide my little hyperfixations that I have because of my mental illnesses. Like he's a great actor. I've just yeah whatever. I also like Sebastian Stan, also a great actor. Not as high on that dream interview list, but on there nonetheless. He like I'm talking about Pedro again, is kind of the reason why I started this. Like his like the Mandalorian side of Star Wars Twitter is kind of where I made a couple of friends, and those people were like, "Yep, we're gonna kick your ass to actually do this podcast." So like I feel like it's almost kind of appropriate to gush about this dude a little bit. So yeah, I hope he never listens to this, but at the same time, hey, if in case you do listen to a lot of podcasts, hi. Oh my god. if if I ever get this man onto this podcast, this is gonna be a little bit embarrassing, but you know, that's just me. The reason why he's inspired me to do this actually is because he does not uh, hide behind his famousness, success. You know what I mean? I just like when celebrities or just famous people, whatever, don't hide behind their whatever that is, like famousness, I don't know, and actually keep it real that they struggled or that they're still struggling from time to time. Um, and he's like one of those actors that is pretty open about that. And that made me rethink how I look at other actors that and other celebrities that don't do that or that don't do that as much. And I wanted to just talk about struggles and how to deal with them with creatives in any type of field. And here we are. That's how this got started. I actually looked into parasocial relationships a little bit. That's the relationship that usually people have between a fan and a celebrity, because it's a very one-sided relationship. But because of social media, it looks and feels like a two-sided relationship. Oh my god, I will have to add it so much. um, where was I? Yeah, the relationship between a fan and a celebrity, because it's one-sided. Because the celebrity is among your friends on your timeline, so it looks like they're like in the same category, but they aren't. So the brain connections that happen because of that are very specific. I looked a little bit into that. I There's so much disconnect between people that made it and people that are just normal people doing their everyday life stuff. And I wanted to talk about humanizing any type of creative field a little more when it comes to mental health and self-care and personal development and all of that stuff and creativity, because I don't see it enough. I do see creatives in certain fields that are very open about their struggles in real time even, but we need that from all types of creative niches. Also, can I just say, I really hope you don't hear my neighbors. They have like some doors that close very loudly. I hope I don't have to get mad in editing at that. You can tell from the way I talk that I'm very critical towards how systems currently work, power structures, and different niches, the way we currently talk about mental health. Like, yeah, we're trying to destigmatize it, but we are not doing it from ourselves most of the time. It's like, oh yeah, depression is like this and anxiety is like this, but you don't talk about your own struggles anymore. And that's part of being a community. So like, yeah, you know what I mean? That's kind of important. We should talk about struggles more, because we can keep giving teenagers and early 20s people the idea that for others it works perfectly fine. I mean, yeah, all of us have enough rational brain to know that not everyone has a perfect life, but because we only see that, our brain has that cognitive distortion of, oh yeah, that person has it way better than me, has very little or no problems, and they never cry in their bed at night. And it's just not right. It doesn't matter how much money you have, you can still have struggles. I mean, they're not gonna be physical, monetarily struggles, but you know, there's still a social animal. There's still a social element to any of us. I mean, we are a social animal. Maybe that's what my brain wanted to go in that sentence. You will hear me struggle a lot with words because it's not my first language. But I thought I was fluent enough to do this, so I'm just gonna get better while I'm doing this podcast. Anyway, the current systems we're living in are perfect ground for mental illness and therefore escapism. Escapism? How do you know what I mean? Yeah, maybe you escape by listening to this podcast and learn to feel more normal with your struggles, and realize that even the most successful people out there have similar problems to you. And yeah, I just want to humanize all types of people in all types of walks of life, because they can be the most successful person in the walk of life, and they will still have problems similar to you. They still are a human being, and I think we're like which is too much at a point where we like don't see other people, at least on a screen, as normal people anymore. They're just like some demigod kind of thing. Like, you probably not like you look at a celebrity and you're like, oh yeah, you don't think about that person being like a person. You know what I mean? That's like, you have to actively make yourself think about that. It's like, oh yeah, that's like a person that is really cool, that's really talented. And then you have to force yourself from idealizing these people because, well, they also go to the toilet and cry and have problems with their family. Like, we don't think about that enough, about other people that we look up to, that we envy. You know what I mean? This is like, yeah, that's a very big reason why I wanted to start this podcast. Like, that's a very big motivation in talking to creatives, humanizing creatives, asking them how they deal with these struggles that they have, because we all have them. And yeah, that's a long explanation that I just gave, and I repeated myself, but I've been told that my voice is kind of relaxing, so like, um, you're welcome. You can expect a podcast every Wednesday as long as the season runs. I'm always telling when the season starts and finishes. This is season 0, where I just talk about my own experiences, what I learned, and I invited a couple smaller creatives to talk to me, and this is gonna be interesting. But yeah, you can be excited for that. And this season is gonna run 12 episodes. And yeah, after that, season 1 with way more interviews, hopefully. This is gonna be a scary journey to go to, because go through, you know what I mean. This is gonna be scary for me, not gonna lie. Go outside of your comfort zone. The amount of people that I will have to email and ask to be on the podcast. Whew. Oh my god. But like, hey, that's how you make cool connections and meet new people, and yeah. I'm scared. I'm gonna be real with you. But it's not the anxiety disorder kind of scared. It's just the, oh yeah, I'm having great ideas and I'm doing great things. And I want to invite other great people to do these great things. And that's scary. But yeah, every Wednesday, one episode. I mean, for the launch, you had 5 episodes, I think, I will have at launch. You can follow this podcast on all types of platforms that I know platforms that I know podcasts exist on. You will have a lot of bloopers in here that I won't cut out. That's just me. I'm struggling with my language. But yeah, you will have, I don't even know what I was saying anymore. Ah, beautiful. Oh yeah, you will find this podcast on any relevant platform. It might take a little longer to be on other platforms, but it will start out on Spotify and on Apple and Stitcher, even though I've never seen someone use Stitcher. If you use Stitcher, please go to my social media. It's at Rayowag, RAYOWAG, and just DM me or comment and tell me if you use Stitcher, because I have never heard someone use that. I'm not judging people using Stitcher, but I genuinely have never seen someone use it or heard of someone use it. Because usually people just have a Spotify premium account or they use Apple, you know. So like, Stitcher gang, if you're there, let me know. There are other platforms, but I have no idea how all of those platforms are called. But I'm trying to be on there, and you can probably find me there. Anyway, like I said, talk to me on my social media, baby. It's all linked in the show notes. It's Rayowag everywhere. But this podcast also has a Twitter. It's the SC Creative, because you can't have a longer nickname on there, and that's just, yeah, that's the sad attempt I made at making it make sense. having it make sense. You know what I mean. I'm still contemplating if I would want another Instagram account to take care of because that's a lot of work. But if you want an Instagram account to follow to get updated when another episode comes out, let me know. Also on my accounts. Like the way you can converse with me is mostly on social media. I don't bite. I'm a normal human being just like you. Please DM if you need any advice, whatever. Maybe not any advice, but like, like if you have an opinion on the podcast or I asked something in the podcast. As long as this podcast has not like thousands of listeners, I will probably be able to still answer DMs. Maybe I hope this entire podcast goes as far where I can say maybe stop DMing me. Like that would be kind of nice. I keep rambling. I mean, this is why I started the podcast. My voice memos to my friends are usually between 10 and 25 minutes long. So like, have fun with all the rambling that you will get from me. I'm having fun with this. Always. Well, have fun with the other 4 episodes that are likely gone live with this one that talk about other creative related things and struggles and how to deal with stuff. And you know, just have a good time. Leave a review when you are on the platform that you can leave reviews on, like Apple Podcasts. And yeah, follow on social media, follow the podcast, and tune in every Wednesday. This is a weird thing to say. I'm not used to making outros anymore. Yeah, check out the show notes for links to all types of stuff. There's always gonna be half an essay in there that you can get resources from. Don't you worry. Yeah, this was very interesting to do, and I really hope everything worked because I don't want to record this again. If you understand what I mean, because this was a long episode already. I don't know how long I've been recording, but it's long. I know it's long. I think it's like maybe not quite an hour, but long. I should maybe say goodbye, should I? Self-care, take care, and maybe be part of the squad, of the self-care squad. I'm gonna say goodbye now. Bye!